It's already over. Donald Trump's negotiated cessation of targeting of energy infrastructure that he negotiated with Vladimir Putin just yesterday, that we can't even call it a ceasefire anyways, it's just like don't target energy infrastructure agreement for 30 days. It lasted about 1 to 2 hours only before Russia took out the energy grid in Slavyansk. So Slavyansk city in eastern Ukraine was already in the dark. And what does this mean for Donald Trump's negotiation efforts with Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin? And what can we expect to happen in the coming days? Привет, my name is Connor Klein and welcome to Geopolitics with Connor Klein. I've been living in Ukraine for many years, speak Ukrainian Russian, so I'm here to give you a more insightful and unique perspective on the happenings of the Russo-Ukrainian war. And this has been front page news. Yesterday, Donald Trump released an upbeat post on Truth Social, his social media platform, saying that he'd had a very good conversation with Vladimir Putin. It was actually quite long. It was about 90 minutes. There is speculation as well that Trump was left waiting for about an hour. And I actually saw a clip from Russian media where at least it was made to look like Putin was running late to speak to Trump and didn't seem too concerned about keeping him waiting. How the mighty have fallen. The lack of respect that was being shown towards the US president, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but that is Vladimir Putin's approach. And well, I can't argue with the number of concessions he's been getting out of Donald Trump in the last few weeks. He has basically framed everything through the lens that Ukraine will have to cede territory. They will not be able to join NATO. They basically have to, well, now next up is that he wants Ukraine to be demilitarized and basically to change the government, which the US has been kind of indicating that they also favor by questioning whether Zelensky is a dictator or not, and encouraging the Ukrainians to have elections, even though that's not possible under martial law in Ukraine. So I made a video earlier, it was the too long didn't read version, and very short. Yesterday, Putin said that they wouldn't target the energy infrastructure, as the quid pro quo Ukraine is not supposed to target Russian oil refineries, and Russians also claimed that Ukraine hit their refineries, their installations in Krasnodar in Russia this morning, but the Ukrainians claim that the Russians basically violated their own undertaking within 2 hours by targeting the energy grid in Slavyansk, the city in the east of Ukraine. On top of that, the only other concrete things to come out of such a long meeting were a prisoner exchange, a POW, 175 each way between Russia and Ukraine. Still waiting to see if that actually happened. These prisoner exchanges happen periodically throughout the war, but that's a good thing to come out of the call if it were one that were not going to be made. But it could also be that Russia already planned the prisoner exchange with Ukraine and just announced it on the call with Trump to give him something else or to make it look like they were being more constructive. And yeah, Donald Trump boasted that there's going to be a hockey game, ice hockey, between Russia and the United States. Not serious at all, considering the circumstances that that's supposed to be a win when we've got the biggest war in Europe since World War II. And probably in terms of casualties, killed in action, wounded in action, and civilian injuries and deaths, all combined, is probably over 1 million in the last 3 years. And you could set the clock at 2014 when the Russo-Ukrainian war began. So far, Trump has very little to show concretely for his endeavors. Of course, in the campaign trail, he claimed he'd resolve everything on day one. Just didn't say which day would be the day one. And really something that this complicated to resolve when you have two sides that basically have polar opposite positions. Ukraine wants to be a sovereign, independent state, and basically in terms of exercising that, not be in Russia's sphere of influence, because they want to be with the European Union. They want to have a NATO protection from Russian aggression, and it's the allure of economic development, like say Poland has, where their economy is, Poland has a GDP per capita that is twice Russia, and about, must be 3 or 4 times that of Ukraine itself. And Russia basically doesn't accept that Ukraine has the right to be independent of Moscow. They want to restore their imperial control of Ukraine. Notwithstanding, Russia's already the biggest country in the world, geographically speaking, in terms of territory. They have a massive amount of territory to develop themselves, but no, they put the priority on trying to force the Ukrainians to come back into their sphere of influence, something that the Ukrainians have effectively managed with the overthrow of Viktor Yanukovych, the pro-Russian Ukrainian president in the 2014 Maidan revolution. So when you have these two sides that don't really have much to agree on, it is extremely complicated. It will take a lot of deft and skilled negotiation to figure out a way to at least get them to stop fighting. And to get a long-term peace settlement, there is no prospect at the moment, but in terms of pushing in that direction would take probably many, many years and really nuanced and incredible negotiation skills. So far, Donald Trump, to quote his own very famous TV series, he looks like the apprentice going into negotiation. He's giving away all these positions and bargaining chips for no quid pro quo to Russia. Russia's just pocketed them, as Putin should do as a skilled negotiator. I mean, why wouldn't he just pocket all the concessions, just ask for more? And basically, he has given close to nothing in return to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, of course, put a very positive spin on what happened yesterday. But at the end of the day, it is not really looking like there has been any significant progress. Looking forward to what's going to happen today. Donald Trump will speak with Volodymyr Zelensky. That is scheduled by phone. No idea what's going to transpire there after their clash in the Oval Office, their infamous debacle that took place about 2 weeks ago. And Ukraine is probably just playing for more time to see how much extra support they can get from their European allies to gradually probably replace the US support as much as possible. US turned off their intel, their supplies of military aid that had been granted under the Biden administration. There's no new aid been appropriated by this new Trump administration, and they also US prevented commercial companies from providing satellite images to the Ukrainians, which coincided with Russia's advances in the Kursk Oblast, which is the small area of Russia that Ukraine occupies. So will we see another attempt to cajole, well, not cajole, but to persuade through basically extortion and blackmail because of Ukraine's vulnerable position, because they rely to a certain extent on this US intel and equipment to try and force even more concessions out of Ukraine. Ukraine had already proposed a full 30-day ceasefire that apparently the Russians are not even interested in. Ukraine did have a few stipulations to that. They added some caveats, like they wanted the children that had been abducted by Russia to be returned, as well as POW stops. And probably Russia would not agree to that. Anyways, it was probably a little bit of a calculated offer that they expected to be rejected, which it was. And maybe because Russia is now demanding and continuing to demand that Ukraine is not rearmed, that they're not allowed to mobilize, that basically they are going to be left defenseless, while Russia is free to not just rearm itself and build up its military production, but also have North Korean troops fighting with them, which is a little bit of a ridiculous situation when you see how the allies of Ukraine have restrained themselves from sending officially any troops on the ground. So I would expect to see continuation of what we've seen before. There's no indication that suddenly Donald Trump is going to turn around and start arming Ukraine to the teeth, which was claimed by a lot of people who were pro-Trump and pro-Ukraine before he became president. Well, you know, and if Putin doesn't agree to his demands, then tough Donald Trump, he'll arm Ukraine and show him. There's no indication that's going to happen at this point. If it does, I'll be delighted to see it. It would definitely make me reevaluate the performance of Donald Trump as a negotiator. But I would expect to see continuation of what we've seen before, more pressure from the US on Ukraine to make more concessions, and that will be up to Volodymyr Zelensky how he tries to craft those so that he looks like he's giving more to Russia, but probably throwing in some caveats that would make it unpalatable and expecting that to be rejected. Anyways, we're going to find out in the coming days. It is a particularly active time diplomatically in the Russo-Ukrainian war. On the ground, the fighting still continues. And Russia continues to bomb Ukrainian cities. So that is where we're at. Drop me a comment down below about what you think, and I will see you in the next video. I don't have my Slava Ukraini t-shirt on today, but I will say Slava Ukraini, do перемоги.